Well, hello friends, and welcome to another Ask Zach. What you just saw there was a clip of me gigging with Paul Bogart in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Track 5 venue at the Hard Rock Casino and Hotel there again in Tulsa, Oklahoma. All right, today is kind of a dovetail to the episode on preparing for the gig. So this is kind of the payoff of kind of when you do your work, and also you continue to do that through the run that you're doing with an artist, you end up getting the payoff of a happy artist, happy client, and they invite you back. So I'm going to tell kind of the story about gigging and about the gear I used. I ended up taking the Fender Tone Master, and it did fantastic. I did it along with the old AC30, used them together. So gonna talk about that, give you the whole shooting match. So this is gonna be a fun one. So while you're thinking about it, go down in the corner and subscribe if you haven't done that already. If you enjoy the episodes, well, please hit the like button, because that helps the algorithm. And if you've already subscribed, I really appreciate you supporting the channel. So there's multiple ways. There's good old tip jar information in the description, or you can go to askzach.com where you can learn about merch like this, or you can become a friend of Ask Zach. And I really appreciate those people that support the channel on a monthly basis. It's greatly appreciated. All right, so let's just dive in. So of course I'd done all sorts of prep work for playing with Paul Bogart, my friend, who's an artist that's now, he's kind of floats between Nashville and Tulsa. And he contacted me about playing a 2-3 hour gigs, out in Tulsa, and there would be no rehearsal. Now, I had played with him in the past. It had been like a year or two since the last time I played with him. So it wasn't like a shocking or overcoming, kind of ordeal to do this. I mean, it was a lot of work, but, yes. And I love his material. I love his songwriting. I love the covers that he does. I really enjoy playing with him. So I absolutely said yes. And then I got about doing all the hard work of, learning the material. Also found out that the fiddle player wasn't going to be there, so I needed to cover his parts also. So then I had to kind of go back over all the tunes and make sure I knew all of the fiddle cues, like if the fiddle was doing an intro, so I had to learn that part also. So I did all the prep that I could, and then they had bus call, or van call, whatever one you call it. We were traveling in a transit van, so that's kind of a, it has some storage area in the back, and there's enough area where you can stand up, and it seats 8 or 9 comfortably. So, and there were actually only 3 of us traveling at that point. So we met up at 8 a.m. at a Target on the west side of Nashville. So we met in the parking lot, and I loaded up all my gear, and we got in the transit van and started for Tulsa, which is about a 10-hour drive from Nashville. So it's at this point that I knew we had time just sitting there in the van, and I wanted to do more prep work to make sure that things went off without a hitch. So here's what I did. I brought along this Takamine classical guitar that I've had for many years. And I like it because, I paid about $350 for it. It's got a pickup on it, which I didn't need for this. But, this guitar has paid for itself many, many times over. I've used it for sessions. And also I end up using it a lot for weddings and funerals. So it seems to be an instrument that's used at the beginning of a chapter and at the end. No puns intended there. But so the reason I took it was so that we could go over all the kickoffs and endings of every song while we were in the car for 10 hours. So I had the set list and had the drummer and the bass player right there. And so we could go over every song. And so he could do the count off like he was going to do it, and also describe the ending. So we went through every single song that way. So it's 3 hours worth of material. So, and again, we're just going over intros and endings. And so again, that's another thing that made it to where on the show, I was able to enjoy it instead of being stressed out, because I knew what was coming. It wasn't like, what's going to happen next? It was like, I was prepared even without a rehearsal. So it's kind of like we rehearsed in the car on the way there. So we stopped off in Little Rock for lunch at Dave's Burgers, which is a great place. And then we traveled on to Tulsa, getting there about 6:30 or so in the evening. And of course, we're going to play at 9 o'clock that night. So we go straight to the casino, which this was the Ramona Casino, which is a little bit north of Tulsa. And so we went straight there and we loaded in and got all our stuff set up. Then we had just enough time to go check into the hotel, take a shower, change our clothes, come back to the venue. And by that point, it's about 8 o'clock. So we decided, well, we haven't had any dinner yet. Let's order some food. So they had a grill there in the casino, and we went there. There wasn't anybody there. It was a ghost town. So we thought, fantastic. We're going to get our food, and we don't have to start playing till 9. We've got a whole hour to relax and eat our food, digest it, get up and play. Well, we order our food, and we all order simple things, like sandwiches, burgers, things like that. And we all, get a fountain drink, a Coke or whatever, and we're sitting there drinking soda, and 30 minutes go by. And then another 10 minutes goes by, and one of us goes up and checks with the counter and said, hey, can you give us an update on our food? We ordered, 40 minutes ago. And the guy said, look, all these people came in right before you and ordered food, and then they went back out in the casino to gamble. So you've got all these people in front of you. So we realized at that point that we were not going to get to eat dinner before we had to start playing at 9 p.m. So we're all starving. So we look around, and they have some candy bars there. And, we're all grown men. And yes, we had just drank a bunch of Coke and, soda of different kinds. So we were all caffeined and sugared up. Then we all eat a candy bar. And so we went up and started playing, and, first set went off well. And of course, after we had played for an hour, then they had our food sitting in styrofoam containers, and it was cold. So again, this is what the road is like. I mean, it's just, there's always unforeseen things that happen. And the worst thing you can do is get upset about something like that. What keeps people wanting to be around you is being able to roll with the punches and being able to, well, I guess we don't get our food. I'm just going to grab a candy bar and eat it, and I'm going to be like a kid. And so you move on. And then when your food's, cold and stuff, you say, it's cold, but man, it sure does hit the spot. I'm glad we had some food. So we played the 3 1-hour sets, went off without a hitch. I sang a couple of songs. So he had told me beforehand that he wanted me to sing a couple songs. So I sang like Elvis's That's All Right Mama. I did the old Flatt and Scruggs tune, Hold What You Got, because I'd heard Ry Cooder and Ricky Skaggs do it years ago live. And so I would do that song. I did a couple instrumentals. I did Hideaway, did Tennessee Waltz, a couple other instrumentals to kind of help things out. Also sang some harmony vocals, which again, there was no rehearsal. So luckily they were, some cover tunes or songs that I'd heard, and I, would just, get up there and do my best. So, but it was a lot of fun. And, so that was the first day. So the second day we were playing at another casino, that's where the footage that I showed you is from the second casino, the Hard Rock. So there was a much bigger stage that was higher off the floor, had a really big, nice dance floor, had, kind of bars on each side of the, long wooden bars on each side of the dance floor with a couple of bartenders, and really nice production, really nice lighting. They had a lighting guy that when I would take a solo, he would spotlight me and things like that. Really pro, high-level guys, and I was really impressed with the guys at the Hard Rock Casino at the Track 5. So we set up there, and at this point, let me give a little aside on the Tone Master. So, I had decided. At first, I had thought I'm going to take all vintage stuff because I haven't played out in a while. Besides doing some recording or some just stuff around town, I haven't really played out where I could crank some stuff up. And I thought, well, I'm just going to take vintage guitars and I'm just going to take vintage amps. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that's just going to be stressful. You know, when I've got like 2 vintage amps, when I've, you know, from the 60s, and I've got 2 vintage guitars that I'm trying to watch over, and I'm concerned about them being stolen or something happening to them. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to take 1 vintage amp and I'm going to take 1 vintage guitar. So I kind of went back and forth, and finally I decided I'd really been enjoying the Vox, and I'd recorded with it, but I hadn't gotten a gig with it. And I knew it was solid, so I decided, okay, taking the Vox AC10. So of course, this is a Vox AC10 that I got from Dan Strain, Danocaster, and it had a weird funky cab. And then I had Kyle Bollendorf custom make a 112 combo cab for it, and it's wonderful. So decided to take this, and I'll just give you one other thing that's kind of necessary with these old amps, is that especially British amps from the 60s, they really don't like to be on 120. They end up sounding frantic. They just kind of sound like like a dog with its face against the glass. It's just too much. So you really need to drop the voltage somehow. Now, I have this, which this is a little box that R.G. Keene built for me. R.G. Keene is one of the engineers at True Tone, or he is the chief engineer at True Tone, and he also helped kind of launch the boutique industry. He's a wonderful guy. And so what this is this little box where you just, you bring in the wall voltage via an IEC cable, and this goes to your amp, and it drops the voltage about 6 to 7 volts. And that's perfect. So if you have 120 coming out, then you get closer to 114, which actually makes a big difference in the sound of that Vox amp. Instead of sounding frantic, it sounds kind of calm, cool, and collected, as it were. So I had the Vox, and then the situation was, okay, what's my second amp going to be? And I decided, after mulling things around, I didn't want to take another vintage amp, and I thought, well, I really loved the Tone Master, and I had actually loaned it out to a friend of mine, and he was gigging with it a bunch, and some friends of mine had even seen him use it and said he sounded fantastic. So that was kind of like, well, I loved the sound of it anyway in the videos that I had done. So I thought, hell, I'll take the Tone Master. It's, that way you don't have to mic it. You can just use the XLR on the out, and you can choose whether to have the speaker on or off and still be sending its signal. Another thing I decided was I was going to go stereo, and so I was using both amps at the same time. And the reason I decided that was because we were only a 4-piece band, and normally he does a 5-piece, and by going stereo, we could kind of pan things left and right with the 2 amps, and I could kind of fill up a little more space. Again, without being like obnoxious, I could run that. So that's what I did. And at the first casino, I would always turn the Vox amp off during the break. And one time, one of the sets we went back up, I forgot to turn this back on, and I was only hearing the Deluxe, and I had its speaker activated, so it was live. And I had one of my ears out, so I didn't even notice that the Vox wasn't on, and it sounded fantastic. So big kudos to Fender, big kudos on the Tone Master. Now that I've recorded with it, I've of course done videos with it, and I've played out with it. It does wonderful. And at the second casino, at the Hard Rock, they were very concerned about stage volume, and so they were okay with me having the AC10 up, because I had it up about halfway so that it'd compress and get a nice sound. They were okay if I had this live as long as I turned the speaker off on this one. And so that's what I did. So I still had the signal coming off the XLR, but yeah. And so it was really nice to have the 2 amps in stereo. The Tone Master was fantastic. The Vox was fantastic. The 2 sounds together were a really fat sound, and I was quite happy with it. And it was nice to have an amp that you kind of felt like was a little more, bulletproof than the old amp. Though, neither one gave me any problems. So I was very thankful for that. So kind of back to the playing at the Hard Rock. It was just a lot of fun. It was a beautiful venue. I was really glad that, again, I could turn the speaker off on that so I could keep the front of house guy happy with me, so he wasn't thinking, you know, here's the arrogant guitar player, you know, blowing the stage volume off the map and just, you know, making it hard for him to mix. So yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. I've got to check my notes here, make sure that I mention a couple things before I dive into the rest of my gear and pedal board and stuff like that. So I was really glad that Danny Thompson came out. So he's a viewer of the show, and he came out to the Hard Rock show, and we were able to hang out some, and I actually showed him my Esquire, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So thank you, Danny, for coming out to that show. So it was fun. All right, let's talk about the rest of the gear. So of course, I had the Tone Master and the Vox. Those are my amps. I was using them, you know, both at the same time, whether this speaker was on or off. This was mic'd. This had the XLR coming off of it. Then in front of that, I had this pedal board. So, and this is based on my normal pedal board. Of course, I have duplicates of everything. Yes, I admit it. So this is my favorite tuner, the Stroba Stomp. Or actually, what is this? No, this is the Sonic Research Turbo Tuner. That's what it is. And I've used this for many years. I really like this tuner a lot. I think if now they have a smaller version, which I would get that. But the Mirage Compressor is a favorite. I learned about that from John Leventhal. It's a good smooth compressor that doesn't get real squishy and stuff, but it's good at leveling things and helping the front of house guy and your bandmates. Helps you not have as many, you know, crazy peaks or anything that make them want to turn you down. Analog Man modded Boss tremolo pedal, just kind of smooths it out. Of course, my favorite overdrive pedal is the Mostortion. This is a rehoused one by XTS. I don't recommend rehousing it unless there's something wrong with it. So this one, the foot switch went out on it, and so I had it rehoused. And Exact Tone is wonderful at doing such things, and so it has a nice switch on there, and yeah, love those guys. Then you have a regular old Boss volume pedal. This is the FV30H, and then next we get to where things kind of switch around or get unusual. Is you have this Access Electronics buffer. It's a BS2. Now this company isn't around anymore, but Mario, the owner, he works for Mesa Boogie now. So what this is because I wanted to go in stereo, I needed to have a way to separate the amp's ground so that I didn't have hum, okay? So some people will use one of these guys and basically remove the ground pin, and this is a bad idea. This is a real bad idea because it's dangerous. And it's not a good solution when you're using two amps, you know, to use one of these guys. So there are better ways. And the better way is this. So, or some type of device that has an isolation transformer, because basically you need to isolate the two amps from each other, okay? So this box has a buffer in it, and then it has a normal output, and then it has, well, it actually has three outputs, but I'm just using two of them. So you have a main output that goes to 1 amp, and then it has a second output that has an isolation transformer and a phase reversal switch, okay? So what this does is allows you to use 2 amps without having, you know, hum, which normally you'll have a low level hum when using 2 amps, or it can even be worse. It can be nasty. Also, you've got a phase reversal switch right here. So while having both speakers live, you can just hit this switch back and forth to make sure the amps are in phase. If they're out of phase, just like out of phase pickups, it will get rid of your mid-range and your tone will be really hollow sounding. So it's real easy. So that's really nice. So this, you know, something like this is really necessary if you're going to use 2 amps, because that way you get really, really quiet, and also you're able to make sure that they're in phase. So signal goes through these pedals. So both amps are getting all of the pedals up to the volume pedal, and here's where things split. So from here, the Fender Tone Master gets the main out. So that means it's just getting these pedals and that's it. And then on the Tone Master, I'm using its built-in reverb, okay? Then this output with the isolation transformer is going through these 2 delay pedals and into the Vox AC10. And of course, the AC10 has no reverb on it. And so that way I've got one side that's got no delay but has reverb, and it's a Fender, and the other side is a Vox amp with no reverb and it's got delay. Now I wouldn't use both of these at the same time, so the DD2 was set to a quick slap back, and then the Echo Park was set to like tape delay and for a longer, delay time that I could tap in. And so that way I could get a really, big sound that wasn't washy and had a really good, impact to it. So that ended up working out really well. And of course, got to give props to True Tone. So this is the One Spot Pro CS6. So thanks, Bob. Yes, of course, I work for True Tone. So I'm going to put that down. So that was my pedal board, and again, it worked out flawlessly. My backup was a tube screamer with a battery in it, and so that way, if anything went wrong, I could just grab that and plug cables in. Of course, I had extra cables and strings and all that stuff. And I was really grateful that I brought extra extension cords, because I ended up needing an extension cord for my pedal board and then another one for my amp, because at one of the venues, the power was not close by. So I had that. Guitar-wise, I took the 57 Esquire, and it was fantastic. It was really fun to play, and yeah, it was. I wouldn't say it was scary at all or stressful, but it was like I was concerned about it. And so because of that, so I always use gig bags. And the reason I use gig bags is because they're easy to carry around and I can keep the guitar with me. Now, of course, if you're on a big tour, or if you're needing your guitars to be with the rest of the equipment, then you really need a road case, because hard cases will just get destroyed sitting with road cases. Road cases have to be with road cases. If you put a hard case like a Fender tweed case in the back, in a van or in a trailer or whatever with other stuff, it will just get demolished. So you really have to have a road case, or you have it in a gig bag and you take it with you, in the area that you're traveling in. So I had the Esquire in this gig bag, and this is one that my in-laws, my wife's parents, gave me for Christmas after I got the Esquire. And so I love putting the Esquire in here. And the other reason I like it is because with the Esquire, I take it with me everywhere I go, because it's an old guitar and it's worth a little bit of money. And for that reason, I take it with me everywhere, or I make sure that it's locked up really well. And so even if we would go to dinner or something like that, I try not to leave it in the room or leave it in a car for any length of time. And in fact, when we were playing at the casino, the first casino, because the stage was real low and they didn't have security right there, I took the guitar with me during the breaks. So when we were eating our cold sandwich, on Friday night, after we'd eaten a candy bar, I had the guitar with me. So it was in the booth at the little grill. So there was a 57 Esquire sitting there. So, yes. Otherwise, I had my Crook Paisley guitar, and because it is similar output, similar sound, and and that was kind of the get up, with that, and it was just a lot of fun. Another thing was, of course, the whole time I had to keep up with my work emails with True Tone. And so I had my work computer with me. I used my phone as a hotspot, so that way I could keep taking care of orders and stuff like that on Friday and over the weekend. And it was just a ton of fun. And then you get back to town and you're back to normal business, and it was great. So I want to thank Paul Bogart, and I want to thank Cody Martin and Daniel Ryan, who I got to play with. That was just so much fun and such a treat, and hope we get to do it again soon. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.